In this part of the video, I'm going to start setting up our JavaScript so we connect everything and we just print out some default to-do items so we can see it works. So just over here, click New File, and let's add our JavaScript file. So like so, I'm going to put it in my library called js and /main.js. So this is my file, and this again fits with this down here. So right now we connected them, and now we can start creating some JavaScript. Now we're going to create an array. So type in var, which is short for variable, and let's do to-do items and an array. And we're just going to put a few items in here. So stuff, and we're going to put something that's not stuff, so cake. So this is just two items inside an array we're going to use to print out. Now, the next part here, we're going to create a function that just prints these out into our UL so we can actually see them and start using them. So function, and we're going to give it a name, for some reason like do stuff, and we're going to have no parameters in this one, and then we'll continue here. Now, because we have more than one item here, we need to do a loop. So we do a for loop, and we are going to add in all these things you remember because you've done these a million times by now. So to do items, and we're converting it to a number so we can calculate dot length and I++, so it's going to add a number for each iteration. So I is 0, I has to be smaller than the length of this, and if that's correct, it adds a number and runs it again. So that's the first part of it. Inside our for loop, we're going to create, we're going to make JavaScript create our HTML for us. First things, we want to write to document write. Because not document write, document get element by ID, sorry, because we already have our element in here. This, we're going to use this. So to-do underscore list is the ID we want here. And this is again the reason why we picked ID and not a class. So when we now have our document.getElement by ID, and we're looking for a specific ID. And it knows it's there, and then we're going to use inner HTML to write to the HTML. Because we know we have more than one item, I'm going to use this plus equal sign, so it's going to add them together. And I'm going to set this to a variable that we're going to create now, because this variable will contain a lot of, let's say, HTML and JavaScript put together. And we're going to use it more than once, so it's a good idea to create a variable for this. I'm going to call it to-do item stuff, like so. This variable I'm going to create up here as well. So if your atom is smart, it's going to tell you, ooh, is it this one? And yes, it is. I'm going to set this variable to something. Now, we already did this a few times. You're going to create a string so we can print out HTML. And I can now start using the bigger sign, typing li for a list item. I'm going to give it a class name. You'll see that later. And list to-do underscore item, with an S in this case. And I'm also going to give it an on-click. And we'll get back to why we do this. On-click equals checked this. This is the first part of our, oops, sorry, we need to have these one of these quotation marks, just one, just here and here. And we do the same here and here. So this is the first part of our HTML, it is actually the first part of our HTML that we're printing through JavaScript, and then we're going to add each of our items from our to-do item up here, and we do this by going into the array And when we are doing an array and doing a for loop, we can type I, because this is the variable I that we're using. It starts from zeros, go 1, 2, 3, because that's what we're telling it to. And then we're going to add a little bit more to our code here. Sorry, that's the wrong button. Where did we go? Here we're going to add a remove button as well, so we can actually click the small tiny cross and it will delete it. Plus, double quotes, button, not with 3 T's, and we're going to use an on click again, so once somebody clicks, something is going to happen. And we're also going to add oh man, I hope this is not room for you. We're going to add a remove, so once we click this, it's going to remove a specific list item. We'll get back to it when I write the code for this, but we need this in our HTML right now. So button on click, and we're going to call this remove. This is our function name when we get there. Parentheses, quotes, plus I, plus because we wanted to add a new number for each item we're using. After this, we are going to, sorry, my computer seems to be annoying me. Where we go? There we go. After this, we're going to just end it, our button here. So this is our button. And still inside of the quote here, we're going to add a text, and I'm just going to write X because we want to click the X for this. And then I'm going to close the button here. So this is my button here, and I'm also going to close the LI I opened here. So let's do that as well. Wrong way. And end this. So all of this, if I can just extend this a little bit more, maybe that'll help. Let's see. And minus, there we go. So my variable called to-do item is a list item here. And then the actual name in the list item, so stuff, cake, and the things we add. And then we're adding a button that has an on-click that goes to a function called remove that is going to attach itself to each of these. So this would be 0, this would be 1 in this case because it's following the for loop, and then we're just ending it. This is again now our CSS for my button here, and I can just make it a little bit pretty, so like so it fits because we like that in coding. And this is actually my JavaScript code for printing it out. Before I can actually make it print out on the page, if I just go here now and print it, nothing will happen, even though we have 2. We need to invoke this function. We need to call it. We could create a button out here. When we click it, it's going to print it out, but we want it to do it automatically. So back into our HTML, go to our body tag. So right here, we're going to do something called an unload. This means when the page loads, you're going to do something. And I'm going to call my do stuff function, like so. Remember the parentheses, and once you've done this, you click save, go to your browser and click run, and hopefully you'll have something like this. So right now we just printed out an array to our page. And all these things that I showed you, we'll get back to those in a short while. So that's the first part of our to-do list.